onions, celery, and carrots. They are present in just about every sauce making technique that exists. This in Italian is called il soffritto, also known as il triumvirato. The meaning of triumvirato means the three famous ones. As Italians, we get to over-romanticize everything. But no matter what type of sauce you make, these flavors bring in the, how can I say, the established building block upon which all of the various layers are built upon. How you treat them is extremely important. I see many times that people start out the pan with very hot heat. Very hot heat tends to scorch the veggies. And in my opinion, if you darken them at the very beginning of the sauce, you turn the sauce to a side, which I don't find to be as appealing as it should be. The reason why I always start this on very low heat and bring it to temperature as we go about is because I want 3 to 4 minutes of individual heating in the pan with these ingredients to get for us what we want to have. Once these basically get to a nice softened state, and will be in 3 or 4 minutes, then you start adding the other ingredients. What are the other ingredients that you want to add? Red pepper flakes. The reason why I love red pepper flakes, first and foremost, is because they allow you to control the heat of what it is that you want to do. But there is one ingredient that you have to see that is fantastic. Pancetta. What is pancetta? Pancetta is first and foremost pork belly. As Italians use this pork belly as one of the building blocks of everything that we make, mostly used for pasta sauces. But I find that the mixing of pork meat with shrimp as a dynamic where almost the yin and yang of things that come in together. Pancetta, when you go to the store, basically looks like something like this. Basically, this, as you can see it, is the belly of the pork that has been rounded and is being tied up and is being let to cure for quite a bit of time. What we've done with this, we have taken a couple of slices and we've chopped them very fine. Very important for you to realize, if you don't have access to pancetta, because more often than not is only available in Italian deli, the one thing that you want to do is you can basically use bacon, any kind of bacon, even maple glazed bacon if that's the flavor that you like. As you can see, our ingredients are starting to get nice and hot. Here's the moment in which we add the pancetta. Why do we add the pancetta? The fat of the pork, the presence, the flavor of the pancetta itself is right now building this block that gives this sauce a stance that ultimately will be mulled over by the other ingredients which are not secretive. Here is garlic, cut nice and thick. In the sauces, I don't like to add chopped garlic, especially if I'm going to cook it for a long period of time. I want the garlic itself to continue to cook without turning the sauce one way or the other. There is nothing more dangerous, nothing more difficult, nothing more disappointing when the garlic is used, and unfortunately for us, burns and it takes the sauce to a direction where we should not have gone. The next addition is an addition of wine. I, in this particular case, love the addition of Chardonnay wine. You can go with any wine you want, even Sauvignon Blanc. But whatever it is, I propose that you use a wine which is dry in character, so maybe nice and buttery with a round body. And this will do it for us. So a little bit. We want now to crank up the heat. You want to let this wine evaporate. When you make this at home, allow for this wine to just reduce by at least half of the amount that you've added. The next addition that we're going to make once the wine has evaporated is chicken stock. I always like chicken stock as my go-to stock. The reason why is because of all the various stocks that you can have access to, it is the most gentle one. Does not have a flavor that completely overtakes the flavoring of the sauce. Bring this to a boil. Once it reaches a boil, reduce it down to a simmer and let it simmer for, I would say, a good 45 minutes. And then we'll strain it. Once we strain it, we go from the looking of this to this other look right over here, and you can see how the sauce is now reduced, it's completely strained, and we'll finish it later on in the plating portion. One ingredient which is extremely important is what I'm holding right here in my hand. This is a bay leaf. Fresh bay leaf, if you have an access to it, make even a better sauce. Dry bay leaf is great. This is what you'll find at a regular supermarket. Add it into the sauce. As the sauce is simmering, it will open up, expand into another flavor. Let's deal with the shrimps. These guys are fantastic. By the way, somebody should write me. How do you go with the plural shrimp? Shrimp or shrimps? I have no idea. Lived in this country for so long, I still make up my own words as I go along. Here we go. A little bit of paprika. I like what paprika does in terms of coloring the fish. Onion powder. Oh, yes. And a little bit of garlic powder as well. And then wildly, the next thing that we're going to do is put a little bit of salt. What I like to use is sea salt. People say, Nick, why are you so favorable towards sea salt? In my opinion, what sea salt does for us, it brings out a flavor that really is not aggressive. Has that ever happened to you, for example, you try some salt and you find that it's so aggressive, almost offensive? Sea salt has a smooth, round finish to it, something that truly brings everything into position. So here we go right now with our shrimp. I'm using extra light olive oil. The reason why I'm using extra light olive oil is because we're going to cook with very high heat. And if you were to use extra virgin olive oil on something that cooks with such high heat, might actually cause for the oil to burn. Now let's take a look and see if the oil is ready. Here we go. We do not want to cook the shrimp all the way through. What we want to do with the shrimp, we simply want to cook it for just a couple of minutes until it changes the color, until the flavorings that we put on it coat the outside of the shrimp. You can see the richness of what this has and how beautiful it is and how it's come into full motion. The shrimp is still raw on the inside, and that's exactly where we want to have it because we want to finish the shrimp in the sauté later on. Now, take the shrimp out of the pan. What I've done here, I have a little bowl with a strainer, just so that the extra oil drips through, but I don't want to toss this oil that's in the pan right now. The reason why I don't want to do that is because this oil has the flavoring of all the spices that we use up to this point, the juices of the shrimp, which have come out during the cooking, and we're going to use this as a continuous base for what we're about to make. So let's put the shrimp aside and let's get involved now with the making of the dish. So first and foremost, we go with a little bit of our onions, nicely chopped. We want this sauté to move quickly. In this case, it's important for the onions to be finely chopped because the finer they are, the quicker they cook. And look at it, they're going just exactly where we want it to go. A little bit more pancetta because I do like to have the chewing experience as I go into the shrimp together with the pancetta, which will have browned nicely at the end of the dish and bringing us a richness, a dynamic, flavoring dynamics, which we're truly seeking. Sun-dried tomatoes. What I'm adding is sun-dried tomatoes, which I've chopped. Let's spend a moment to discuss the sun-dried tomatoes. These sun-dried tomatoes were packed in extra virgin olive oil, so we've taken them out. We had drained the tomatoes. We washed them quite well. Now, nice and soft, and then we chop them up. If you buy sun-dried tomatoes out of a plastic bag, before you can use those tomatoes, don't make me laugh too hard, because once I had one of my friends say, oh, Nick, I buy them in a plastic bag. I take them out. They look like chips. I toss them in there. They work perfect. They don't. It's a problem. If you take them out of the plastic bag, these are truly sun-dried tomatoes, but you have to revive them in hot water. Then you have to let them set in hot water for about 30 minutes or so. Then you can drain and pull them out. Then you can chop them. Then you can add them. But if you have access to sun-dried tomatoes packed in extra virgin olive oil, that is the direction where I want you to go. Garbanzo beans, right out of the can. We drain them real well, and we have washed them as well. You want to wash them because in the water in which the garbanzo beans are packed, there's an enormous amount of salt. You do not want to have that excessive salt in there. A little bit more garlic into it so they can all cook together. Uno, due, tre. Let's get this. Oh, look at this already. I'm composing a miraculous painting. Now we go with the shrimp that we placed aside. We're going to finish the shrimp here in the sauté pan. Guarda, guarda che bellezza. Uno più bello dell'altro, which means one more beautiful than the next. And then the unexpected is finally become the expected, and that is the addition of the arugula. As we add the arugula uncut, I want for this arugula to actually wilt into the sauté. Not only will bring out color, but also will bring out a fantastic peppery flavor, which is so typical of the arugula in the serving of this dish. So I'm going to let this cook for a little while longer until the shrimp cooks all the way through. I'm going to finish up the sauce, and then I'm going to show you how to plate this. Very simple presentation. The shrimp has finished cooking. I'm turning it off. However, one thing that I love at this point is the addition of softened butter. Look what happens once we add the softened butter. Just a tiny bit, that's all that you want. But it gives it a glaze. A glaze that sheens on top of the shrimp. And also, if you do it nice and light, as we're doing it right now, it makes it sparkle. Not just in the eyes, but makes it sparkle overall. The flavor is a softened creaminess to it that brings you exactly to the direction you want to go to. We have our plate here ready, and this is the way I like to do it. Build it right on top of it. This is very country style. Don't stand there and spend too much time on where it goes, where it doesn't go. Make sure that all of the ingredients are present. a little big piece of shrimp right on top, a little bit more of the ingredients around it. Let it sing. This is something that has to sing for you. And then we go with the sauce. The sauce, what we've done with the sauce, remember we have strained the sauce once the sauce comes to the right consistency, and we reduce it a little bit more. If you find that the sauce needs even more thickening, be patient. Always finish the sauce first before you start with your presentation. So here we have shrimp, garbanzo beans, a little bit of sun-dried tomatoes, arugula, and a Chardonnay sauce. Signori e signori, ecco a voi il mio capolavoro. Ladies and gentlemen, here it is for you, my personal masterpiece. But then again, would you expect anything less? Shrimp. I love everything about shrimp. The most important thing about shrimp is not just the flesh itself, is the shell. As a matter of fact, if I can give you a big word of advice, is when you shop for shrimp the next time that you do, make sure that you save the shells. What I like to do is to put them inside a plastic bag, put them in the freezer, and when I have enough, I make my own shrimp stock. You will love me for that alone. The other thing is how to handle shrimp, how to cook it. Depending on the size, the timing of the cooking varies, but the best way to go at it is with high heat, blasting it for a short period of time. To really bring out the flavor into the shrimp before you cook it is to brush it with a little bit of oil and then spice it up with your own favorite flavor mix of spices. Sugar, salt, pepper, yes, sugar works wonders. Paprika, onion powder, garlic powder, so that when you finally cook it into the oven or under the broiler, immediately all this flavoring become almost a crust-like. On top of it, many times you find yourself in need of small shrimp, but they're not available, and all that you can get is colossal shrimp. If that is the case, do not despair. Simply treat the shrimp as I told you. Take the shell out, cut it in small pieces, and do whatever you need to do.